Well, good morning, everybody. We can get started, and I assume you can all hear me okay in here. Robin, we okay on Zoom? Friends on Zoom? All right, excellent. All right, well, welcome to Common Ground Meditation Center. I'm wondering if there's anyone here for the first time today. Okay, great. Well, my name's Wynn Fricke. I'm stepping in for Mark Nunberg, one of the guiding teachers here. He's on retreat at Cloud Mountain. He's offering a retreat out there, out in Portland, Oregon. So I'll be stepping in for him this morning. And I'll introduce myself formally later, but why don't we begin with the Four Quarters chant? This is the suffusion with the divine abidings. It's on page 30 of your chant book. So this chant is about settling into the energy of our hearts and sending our kindness in all directions. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Please take your time as you settle comfortably into your seated position. Just feeling your body broadly. And we can have a sense of respect for the spine and its natural curves, its natural, easeful way of being. And also the purposeful energy of the spine. We're here upright with purpose. And chest is open, heart area open with readiness. And feeling the support of the ground beneath us. And we can accept that support, releasing the body into its own weight in any way that makes sense for you. Softening around the breath, softening around the rib cage, in the throat. And bringing attention to the face, to the forehead, which you can imagine spreading and widening. And the eyes soften down into their eye sockets. There's a sense of the shoulders dropping down away from the ears, so we feel the weight of the arms and the hands. So in this incremental way, we touch into the body and relax what we can relax. And appreciating this natural movement of the breath, which is always happening, whether we're tuned to it or not. So feeling the breath as a gift, it's given. This body is given. So in one way, we relax the body, we release into gravity, a little bit like tea leaves settling in hot water. The energy of the body slowly settles down. And in a different way, we relax the mind. And we do that by finding the still point, this open presence, this knowing mind. So what does it mean to be anchored in our present moment experience? And when we find we've been lost in thought, without any judgment whatsoever, we can come back to the body, to this seated posture, to the movement of the breath. To all the moving sensations of this body. Using the body as a tool to be present. You find the mind is a little bit all over the place, you can narrow your attention to just the movement of the breath, feeling it in the nostrils or in the belly. Giving the mind a way to gather itself. So please take a moment to stand, stretch, sure you're comfortable. Just checking in one more time. Everyone's good on Zoom? Great to see you all. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day today. So great to see all of you. My name is Wynn Fricke. For those that don't know me, I'm one of the founders of Common Ground, which grew up out of our living room back in 2003, 7 blocks down on 26th Street, and was from a very modest beginning to a really thriving center. It just gives me faith in the power of our practice, power of the Dhamma. My field has been in dance and theater. I've been a professional choreographer and dancer, and now I work at McAllister College in the Department of Theater and Dance. And I've done a lot of practice, on my free time, in both the Thai forest and Mahasi Sayadaw tradition. And I do what I can fit in the sides. And I really appreciate these times when I can offer a talk, and it gives me an opportunity to just sink into something I've been, reflecting about, some edge in my practice that I'm interested in. And I thought I would talk today about wise and unwise attention. So wise attention is an aspect of mindfulness, and I think it's a subtle idea that I'd like to explore with you all today. So the Buddha said, wise attention is one factor that conduces to distinction. Unwise attention, this is one factor that conduces to ruin. So how we pay attention, what we pay attention to. And the Pali word for wise attention is yoniso manasikara. And it means the kind of attention that is penetrating and thorough and appropriate. And the literal translation is to direct the attention purposefully. And I think it's worth spending a moment to break down the word. So yoniso manasikara, yoniso is translates as womb or origin, like the matrix, the source, the root. So yoniso, manas is attention. Attention is always in the mind, right? Whether this is always just a fact of being a conscious human being, attention is always in the mind, manas. And sikara means to fashion. So we fashion the attention with purpose. We direct the attention with purpose. And it also has the connotation of penetrating the outer surface to see more deeply. And it's a kind of attention that is not clouded by the push and pull of greed and aversion, right? It doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't want an experience. It's not pushing away an experience. It has that bright, reflective quality. And Ajahn Amaro, and I'm just going to share it because it's curious to me, he describes yoniso manasikara. It explores the unmoving ground of knowing. That's an interesting thought for me, kind of this unmoving, like what is unmoving in the mind that can know what moves? So just an interesting reflection. So there's several ways to think about wise attention. And one is with all the objects that come into our awareness, we can discern whether they are wholesome or unwholesome, right? So in any given moment, there are objects arising in consciousness, whether it's a sight, whether we're hearing a sound, whether we're having a memory, whether we're having an ache in the body. Multitudes of contact is happening, right? And then with that contact, there's a feeling associated with that, a feeling that it's pleasant, that it's unpleasant. And in general, there's a little mental perception, a little proliferation around, for instance, that memory. That memory comes up, and then my mind does a little dance with that memory. It leads to one association, to the next association, to the next association. So in any given moment, we can notice in our mental activity, in response to anything, we can notice if there's a flavor of wholesome or a flavor of unwholesome, or a flavor of skill or a flavor of unskilled. And I think a useful way to think of that is skillful in the sense that it leads to deepening understanding and deepening freedom, unskillful in the sense that it leads to suffering. So if we just kind of think of skillful and unskillful in those two ways, kusala and akusala. So I just want to, this is of course happening all day long, but I just want to give an example to ground us in what we're talking about. So not too long ago, I walked into work just outside my office, and I saw that my colleagues in the faculty were having a meeting, and it was a little bit strange. Like, how, am I supposed to be at a meeting? Was there something I missed? And they just kind of waved, like, "No, you're good," And so I stepped in my office, and so there was just this little proliferation of thought and wondering, like, what are they talking about that I'm not supposed to be there? Is there something sensitive that I'm not supposed to know? And I just saw the mind do this little tumbling forward of concern, and in a very subtle way, it touched a barcode of like my life story of not included, or just all the little threads where the mind can go in an instant, right? In an instant. And so, and with my practice, it's like, oh, right away, I'm so glad I was conscious of this little spilling of mental activity, which I could feel it in my body, right? There's just that little, and feeling that, and feeling the energy of the spin. It's like I can check that mental energy. Or if I didn't notice it, chances are I would fuel it. That concern, that unpleasantness would fuel those questions and fuel the drama. And then I'd probably get a little angry or irritated. How come nobody told me, whatever it may be, just going down that path of unseen mental activity. So in that moment, it's like, okay, I can discern this path of thinking. I can discard, right? This isn't useful to me right now. Here's what I can give my attention to. And it's like, okay, we just sit down at my desk, feel my feet on the floor, connect into my body, feel my breath. There is a refuge that is deeper than needing to be included in a meeting, right? So there's a little challenge. What is more powerful? What is more necessary in terms of my aspiration of being a free human being? Like, where do I give my attention right now? And it was just like, and this is very small. I don't want to make this moment seem like it was huge, but these small moments are really crucial, that we see them and we respond in a way that protects our heart. There's that mudra. This is the Karana mudra, shields the heart from what is not necessary. So there is a firmness in my response right there. No, the mind is not going to go there. Boom. There's a firmness here in where is useful to my mind, coming back into balance. And it's not like it prevents me from skillful action. I can still find out what that meeting was about, do everything that needs to happen, but it won't come from this place of self-righteous indignation and concern, and somebody didn't blame, whatever those energies are that may not be useful. So I just want to make that clear. It has nothing to do with preventing action that needs to happen. In fact, I think it allows more skillful engagement when we're clear and when we're centered. So discarding what is not useful to pay attention to, and giving attention to what is useful to bear in mind. And I think that this kind of letting go happens in these small increments. I think we need to respect the small things all the time that are happening. And this is the value, the beauty of a sustained mindfulness, not a hard mindfulness, but that's just right there with our hearts, right there with what's going on in the mind. And then we can check the mind when it gets into its unskillful patterns. And in that choice, for instance, to kind of come back to my body, the chitta, the heart gathers energy, right? It gathers itself. And we can feel the dispersing energy of when the mind with craving is reaching out with that energy of whatever that agitation may be, right? And that's another thing that we can discern. I can feel the heart gathering its centeredness, gathering itself as I come back into the present moment. And the other thing you can see when we've been triggered, when we've been activated, we can anchor in all the energy that's happened when we're activated. And that's in the present moment too. That's right in the body. And it's not fueling it, right? It's not fueling that activation. It's being present and allowing that energy to move, that aliveness to be present. This is from the Dhammapada. The wise person who, as if holding a set of scales, selects what's good and avoids what's evil, is for that reason a sage. Whoever can weigh these two sides of the world is for that reason called a sage. And this is Pema Chodron. She says, we can become intimate with just how we hide out, doze off, freeze up. And that intimacy, coming to know these barriers so well, is what begins to dismantle them. So like in that moment of feeling my heart activated, I could also choose to just sit right in the middle of that little pain, really just come right into the center of it, in my body, in the present moment, not in a spinning out thought, right? Get to know what forces are at play in this moment, what eye making is happening in this moment, and take interest, make space, right? Ajahn Sucitto, I love his description of metta. He's like, when we make space for whatever's arising, that already is metta. That's already kindness. We allow. There's this teaching that is from the Cherokee tribe that has been sort of moving around Dhamma circles these last years, and maybe you've heard it, but I think it's worth sharing. I think it's powerful. This is the story. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy. It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. He continued, The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. And I think it's so subtle how we feed what makes us suffer or how we feed what nourishes us. But to give this a lens of attention. And one thing that's an important teaching from the Buddha that I don't think I hear enough, and I think it's a part of wise attention, is to notice and acknowledge our own virtue. I think it's our habit to notice what's difficult and to notice what's wrong and to give that our energy because it's so loud and uncomfortable and we want it to change. But the Buddha said we need to notice our virtue. We need to notice our integrity, notice our concern, notice our sensitivity. And it's like our hearts are so supple, they're so sensitive. I'm sure like we're all impacting each other in this room, and boundaries are not quite what we think, I believe, that everything we think, everything we feel, it has ripples, right? And we're all feeling that all the time. So the heart is being impacted all the time, and to appreciate that sensitivity. And a lot of that sensitivity is dissonant. It's difficult. And when we're in touch with it, when we're in touch with that dissonance that we feel, it can lead us to feel that something's wrong with us. Like, I'm somehow not doing it right. There's something wrong with me. I'm somehow not worthy, or I'm somehow not seen, or whatever that narrative may be that can lead, that sensitivity can be interpreted in that way. And then we can build stories about ourselves, about not being somehow right in the world. And as an antidote to that habit of mind, we need to pay attention to each time there's a kind thought, even today. Can you think of a moment where you were generous or someone was kind to you? Just to give those real things energy and attention. The Buddha said, keep your mind on your virtues and you will arrive at joy, rapture, pleasure without doubt. So this first several ways of thinking about wise attention, right? Discerning what's skillful and what's unskillful and what arises, noticing our virtue. And then there's right view, and this is the wonderful offering of Sayadaw U Tejaniya. He came vibrantly onto the scene maybe about 20 years ago, and where he talked about pay attention to the attitude in the mind toward whatever is arising. And this is not completely unrelated to what we were talking about, but just notice the attitude in the mind. For instance, when anger arises or fear arises, what is the attitude in our awareness? Is it accepting? Is it, I'm going to fix you, I'm going to beat you down? Like for real, what happens? What is our attitude when we're met with our own difficulty? And this is just, again, like more subtle territory. And I've been practicing a long time. And it's not until recently did I realize how much control was in my mindfulness, which isn't mindfulness. Actually, that's fear. It's like when we're controlling our experience because we're afraid of being afraid, or we're afraid of, whatever that might be. There can be this management, like mindfulness is managing our situation, right? And that's not the metta that Ajahn Sucitto was talking about, right? We don't meet our afflictions with management, right? We meet them with curiosity, with metta, with openness. So noticing this attitude in the mind, like when you come to sit, you have a pain in the leg, you start to get angry at your pain, and then you start to get angry at you, or whatever it may be. Like, we can really practice this space of openness and patience, receptivity. That this sort of little claw of judgment that can live inside our mindfulness is not to be trusted. Or it can be seen. It can be seen and explored as well. So we all struggle with anger, and we all struggle with craving and clinging. This is our human story. And so we can relax, right? We can relax. This is the stuff of our practice, to not judge its presence, because it precedes us, right? We inherit the whole of our humanity that preceded us, right? Like all of those forces are much larger than this personal body and mind and birth, right? And to keep seeing and understanding that too. Stephen Levine, maybe some of you heard of him he was really important in the 80s and 90s, but he used to say, big surprise, like when rage would show up, or frustration, or, when we're just being our human selves, he would say, big surprise. Like, of course. So we have to have that, of course, kind of feeling when what's difficult arises, instead of a judgmental, got to put it in a box kind of response. And I talk of this metaphor a lot from Thich Nhat Hanh, because it's so useful, where he describes, if like a feeling of betrayal, for instance, is really present in the heart, or whatever the source of suffering may be. He says we take that suffering like the hand of a child, is how we hold it. We keep it close. It's tender. We're sensitive. We don't let the child run rampant, right? We hold the hand of a child, super sensitive, awake, but we don't hit the child, right? We don't come down on that kind of mind, on those forces, with a fist. And it's such so core to our practice to learn to be with that difficulty and not in it. And what does that mean? What does it mean when we're lost, when we're that angry person? We're that, we're that hopeless person, whatever it may be. We're that person that's always filled with self-doubt. And what does it mean to be with those energies instead of in those energies? What is this knowing mind, right? This knowing mind that can hold and meet any activity, right? With equanimity, with clarity, this wise attention. And there's a metaphor I've heard that is really useful. This is from Venerable Analayo, where he talks about a sort of the nature and the force of these, when we're activated, right? When we're reactive. So it combines several things. So there's, for instance, with this example that I gave earlier. So there's an idea, when I saw my colleagues meeting, there's an idea of somehow, there's an idea of being left out. or like not included. And there was sort of emotional currents that were surrounding that. And there was unpleasant feeling. So those three things sort of form a whirlpool. And then as we continue to think and feed that whirlpool, it takes on stronger and stronger force. And because of that, it's like the mind goes there and we're in it. We're in that whirlpool of activity. And it's the nature of it with that centripetal force of that activation. So this is where the body is so useful. We recognize, okay, I'm in it. I can come back. I can come back into the present, in this body, in this spine, in my feet on the floor, in this space, in all the energy that's moving, and not feed this particular whirlpool with all my ideas about it, right? And so there's a humility as well. There's a humility of coming back to presence, coming back to our body. And another subtle thing, when we've been lost, and you all know what I'm talking about, right? When I say kind of lost in activation, right? We all know this, right? We can feel the character of being disconnected. We can feel the hardness, right? We can feel like a sense of disconnection from ourselves. And then we can feel the connection with ourselves, the intimacy, the nourishment when we come back. We come back to the body, grounded in the present moment experience. And that's really subtle, but it's important to notice because our heart is nourished when we're present, when our consciousness is right here in the present moment experience, there's a nourishment and energy versus floods that go out with these whirlpools. Right? It's like a crack in the system. So back to the right attitude. Utejaniya says, we don't interfere or control, but observe, because we want to understand the mind and objects in their natural state. That is right view. I'll just read that again. We don't interfere or control, but observe, because we want to understand the mind and objects in their natural state. That is right view. So we don't demand that our experience be different, that's just wanting mind, and to recognize that as wanting mind. And that makes for confusion. Those are Ajahn Chah's words. That just makes for confusion, wanting our experience to be different than it is. So with sustained sakti, with sustained mindfulness, there's a possibility of looking at the origin of an activation before it gets to be a huge whirlpool, right? And so like in that example that I was talking about, and I saw my colleagues and I felt left out and maybe not valued for a second, and the little barcode explosion. So it's like, oh, okay, this is unpleasant. There's pain here, right? And we can just see that as okay, practice, and not in a way that's controlling, right? It's just not feeding, which is activity, right? Our suffering is activity. We're feeding that part of the mind. So it's checking the part of the mind that's habituated to doing that. And that requires just a lot of willingness to show up with that unpleasant feeling, because it's the unpleasant feeling that we can't stand. And that's what makes us tumble forward mentally. So instead, we feel the push, we feel the pressure of that unpleasantness. And it can take, any fear, any emotion, strong, it has a push to it. And that pressure, that push can be acknowledged. We can feel that. We can feel it in the body, name that, And again, this is the body, the tool, the useful tool to keep us anchored. And when we're anchored, then there's some possibility of exploring this mental activity, kind of letting it do its dance, because we're anchored, we're present. We have enough gathered energy to witness, to observe, and to get to know how it's operating. So this is a stability of presence that we can learn to trust. Slowly we learn to trust that steadying of the heart and mind, and we learn to distrust compulsion. All no compulsion. We're just thrown forward into our life, disconnected from our body. So the feeling of compulsion we can be sensitive to, the feeling of stability we can be sensitive to. And I want to just say that the discerning mind has nothing whatsoever to do with the judging mind. We can distinguish those qualities of mind. Judgment, by definition, involves aversion. So attention to what's skillful and unskillful understands judgment as not useful. And when we see judgment arising, with right attitude, we can accept it, right? We can accept that judgment is here. We can feel its hardness. We can feel it's the self that's in it, right? The hardness in the body, the you're over there and I'm over here, all those dynamics that come with judgment, that can be felt, that can be observed. And as Pema Chodron was saying, this is how we dismantle it. We're attuned. We feel that this quality of judgment, it's here, but I don't need to feed that. I can taste that this is not leading to deeper freedom in my heart to go down the path of judgment. Maybe it leads to something that feels good, but not really. And then we can get to know that. So what's the difference between a discerning mind and a judging mind? So with discerning, free of judgment, we can feel that spacious, warm, fluid, open quality of mind, right? It can see clearly. So discerning sees clearly, judging by nature clouds the clarity. And with judgment, we're already full, right? It lacks humility. We're already full with our ideas of what's right. And I found this lovely article by Corrado Penza, who's a wonderful teacher in our tradition, and I want to read these few paragraphs. He says, "It seems to me that humility may be the highest form of non-judgmental intelligence. Perhaps this is why T.S. Eliot says, I think it was in the Four Quartets, that humility is endless." And later in the article, he says, the Buddhist poet Shantideva of the 8th century says something interesting. He says, if someone hits you with a stick, you don't get angry at the stick because the stick was moved by that person. Now that person was moved as well. So why do you get angry at the person? There's another angle from which we can see this. The Buddha talked about unwise attention, yoniso manasikara. Suppose we have a special dislike for someone, and suppose that person appears. Our attention may become extremely sharp because we're eager to see all the inappropriate things that this person is about to do or say. Now, this is unwise attention. This is strong, very sharp attention, but it is unwise because it just creates suffering. Judging mind is rooted in yoniso manasikara, in unwise attention. On the other hand, discerning mind is rooted in yoniso manasikara, in wise attention. Wise attention, very simply, let us stay with the same example, is the capacity to see the same thing, to look and contemplate the same scene, and yet to see the suffering which is created by that kind of unwise attention, which leads to attachment and aversion. So I just want to encourage a kind of mindfulness that's really soft and continuous. And I think it's because we judge our hearts so much that it's like really hard to stay present with ourselves sometimes, because it's so complicated what we see. It's like enough. But if we feel that the effort is more like a bow, it's just more of a humility, it's just showing up, and with a kind of wide open okay with whatever it is. It's okay, whatever it is. I'm allowed to be a learner. It's important that I'm a learner. So this kind of sustained willingness to be present and to use our body to anchor ourselves. We learn what it means to be present through the body. We learn, we can feel, we can see the difference when we've been lost and when we're present. We need to learn that. So I think when our mindfulness is not burdened with the need to control, to manage, to impact, that it can be effortless, just surfing on a wave, soft, and accepting all the corners of our heart, however much we don't like that they're there, but that's the work. Ajahn Chah says, even if we only do a little, that is still all right. The mind is naturally peaceful. It's in order to understand just this much that we have come together to do this difficult practice of meditation. I think it's true. I think it's really difficult, but I don't think the effort has to be that kind of effort, It's the effort of widening and opening. And to get that it's difficult, like this is radical and it's difficult. I've been doing these little Duolingo. I've been learning this language, Duolingo, and they give you a little warning before a difficult one. They say, this exercise is hard. And I appreciate it, because then when I can't do the exercise, it's like, okay, this was a hard one. But just to evoke that parami of patience, like endless patience that we can bring along with us as we're moving through this path, and just to support those qualities of mind that will help us to stay present in that open and effortless kind of way. And we notice slowly how our practice protects us. And that like becomes an incentive. It's like naturally reinforcing. Yeah, I can stay present with this. This is Ajahn Chah again. He says, sati is life. Sati is mindfulness. Sati is life. Whenever we don't have sati, when we are heedless, it's as if we are dead. If we have no sati, then our speech and actions have no meaning. Sati is simply recollection. It's a cause for the arising of self-awareness and wisdom. Whatever virtues we have cultivated are imperfect if lacking in sati. Sati is that which watches over us while standing, walking, sitting, and lying. Whatever we do, we take care. A sense of shame will arise. We will feel ashamed about the things we do which aren't correct. As shame increases, our collectedness will increase as well. When collectedness increases, heedlessness will disappear. Even if we don't sit in meditation, these factors will be present in the mind. And I want to rename this word shame that he uses here, because I don't think it has quite the useful translation for us, but what he's talking about is hiri-ottappa, wholesome fear and wholesome remorse, which is just the part of the heart that protects us, that says, oh, don't go down that path. Danger, right? Wholesome fear. Or when we've made a mistake, when we messed up, right? There's a squeeze in the heart, right? We all feel that. Oh. And then we turn that energy into insight and resolve. Oh, I don't need to do that again. That was not the way to go. So these are qualities that are natural and crucial. They're natural to the heart. The Buddha called them the bright guardians of the world. And so that sensitivity, like when we're frustrated by how sensitive we are, we're just done with feeling, right? We can just be done. Like, no, these are the guardians of the world. And we know it's well chronicled how brutal a species we can be when we lose touch with our sensitivity. So we know what's at stake as well. Maybe I'll just end with just the Buddha's words on a yoniso manasikara, what is unskillful or unwise attention. And this is really, really foundational. So in direct contrast to yoniso manasikara can be characterized as a yoniso manasikara, which is mistaking what is impermanent for permanent. Mistaking what is unsatisfactory for satisfactory. Mistaking what is non-self for being self. Mistaking what is not beautiful for what is beautiful. And it also means superficial attention and seeing only appearances. Yeah, I think I'll just end it there. There's more to be said, but yeah, and I think maybe a subject for small group discussions could be just to shine a light, like to reflect on how we respond to our own suffering, to, to states of mind like fear or shame or anger or forces in the mind and heart that we prefer not to be there. Like, how do we respond? And I'll just add this one other metaphor for wise attention. Like Ajahn Sucitto uses the metaphor of an open palm, like the kind of mindfulness where, if betrayal is in the heart, for instance, how with an open palm we can feel around, right? It listens, all angles, taking in what's happening. And it feels so similar to Thich Nhat Hanh. We take the hand of a child and to notice in our own mind the impulse to hit, to hit ourselves, to hit these forces with a fist, instead of a kind of curiosity, a profound, open, self-protecting curiosity. So, protecting the heart is like number one, just noticing the ways in which we don't do that, skillful, unskillful, wise attention, unwise attention. I'll pass it on. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name's Robin, and I'm the office manager at Common Ground. There we go. So as many of you know, we are supported and rely on Donna, the Pali word for generosity, and all of our teachers' livelihoods, my wage, the buildings, everything is reliant on generosity. So if you would like to participate or give in any way, when we have a teacher who's not Shelley or Mark teaching, like Wynn, 2/3 of the Donna goes to Wynn and 1/3 goes to the center. And yeah, I'll say just give a couple announcements of upcoming programs. Next Saturday, May 20th, we have the Spring Maintenance Day, and we'll be doing lots of different kind of repairs and caring for the building, cleaning, fixing things. The following Saturday, the 27th, Shelley is leading a day-long retreat. And then at our retreat center for the month of June, Wynn will be in residence and we'll lead a retreat the first weekend. There's still Zoom spots available for that with Shelley, and then 3 practice periods the rest of the month. Okay, anything else? No. So Lucy, for those online, is going to put folks in small groups. And if anyone wants to stay and participate in a small group, either I or Lisa will put people into small groups. Thanks. Oh yeah, thanks for saying that, Kathleen.
Gonna try to stop the live stream, Robin, or are you? Hi, everyone. Just thank you, Robin. Thank you, Wynn. Robin, if you can hear me, I'm not able to close off the live stream. So I'll just start the small groups anyways. Welcome. Anyone want to unmute and remind us of the prompt for today from Wynn?
This is Mary. So I wrote down, how do we respond? If I can read it, somebody else says it. How do we respond to the forces in the mind that we wish weren't there? With curiosity or with wanting to hit out?
Thank you so much, Mary. Okay, so here we go. I'll put us in small rooms for 15 minutes and then we'll just come back to say goodbye. Great conversation. Here we go.
Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lucy. Oh, good to
everyone.
see you, Susan.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good week.
Great. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Yes, happy Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.